Dear friends, welcome to the fourth episode of Interior Castle. And here we begin this journey, proper journey into first mansions. When we enter a palace or a house, normally we start with the ground floor entrance, or if there is a basement, we would start from the lowest floor. Taking an ordinary scenario, at that juncture, we normally find a scarcity of light and perhaps even ventilation. Of course, if we consider the basement of a house or a palace, it is normally such a place, a dwelling of insects and other creatures. Teresa affirms that in this lowest or the first mansion are those souls with good desires, those who pray and have an inclination towards the spiritual. However, they are still absorbed primarily in their possessions, honors, and business affairs in the world, which she compares them to creatures with worldly desires and are entangled with myriads of wild creatures that are venomous and crooked in nature. Those of us who are not keen on experiencing God normally take into consideration the tangible world for our existence and experience, and we think that this is what we have. The idea of the castle, according to Saint Teresa, she explains that the idea for the castle came into her mind as she prayed to the Lord to speak to her in the challenging task of writing about prayer. She was guiding her sisters so that they may be detached themselves from the world. She asks us to consider our souls to be like a castle made entirely out of diamond or very clear crystal, in which there are many rooms. She marvels at the beauty and value of our souls created in the image and likeness of God. In this castle, there is a space, and that is our soul. There are many dwelling places, and in the center is the place where secret exchanges between God and the soul take place. Teresa states her purpose in writing to explain the various favors God grants to us in our daily life. Interior Castle, First Mansion, First Chapter, Paragraph 3. These favors are already granted to a soul when created in the image of God Himself. In explaining that we are made in the image and likeness of God, Teresa points out how we have a capacity for God that transcends human reason and understanding. Not only are we called to communion with God, but we are spiritually structured in such a way that God lives in His own dwelling place within us more so than He does in the whole cosmos. So we are practically wired to God. Teresa, in choosing the symbol of a castle to express this deep truth, reveals its roots through her own mystical experience. Alongside her symbol of the castle, Teresa sought support to her vision in the Word of God. She drew from it three affirmations. The first one, Jesus' words, "In my Father's house there are many dwelling places." John chapter 14, verse 2. "I found my delight in people." Proverbs chapter 8, verse 31. "Let us make humankind in our own image after our likeness." Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. She finds her authority of a symbol of the castle in these biblical texts and evaluates human person through Christian perspective. The castle, or the dwelling place of God, according to Teresa, begins on a positive note, speaking of the beauty and dignity of our souls. Actually, soul and castle are the same in the symbolic language of the work. And in our language today, the soul refers to human person. Teresa begins by speaking of the beauty and dignity of human person. She affirms, quote, "For if this castle is the soul, clearly one doesn't have to enter it since it is within oneself. How foolish it would seem Were we to tell someone to enter a room, he is already in. But you must understand that there is a great difference in the ways one may be inside this castle. Unquote. Interior Castle, chapter 1, mention 1, chapter 1, paragraph 5. So in this, we find very clearly that Teresa wants to help us to go forward. We find that it is individuality, personality, and is called Emmanuel or God with us, which we are celebrating in this. It is a microcosm within macrocosm, which means the little world within the big world. It is also called the image of God. It is sonship, the sonship of the Father. It is the Christ or the Logos, which means the Word. It can reason both inductively and deductively, and is the only thing known to us that can reason both ways. But we are all trapped in some way. This is exactly how Teresa portrays the first mansion of the interior castle. People are so caught up with worldly cares that they are content simply with remaining in the outer courtyard of the castle and do not desire to enter the soul's first interior mansion. They are some way described as trapped in their own mind, desire, ambition, and worldly pursuit. This is very true. We can understand what actually she means because we who live attached to the world seldom think of spiritual riches and the peace these riches can bring to us. Unfortunately, when they finally enter these rooms with good intentions, with some kind of effort, many distractions and worldly allurements get in with them and can create great havoc and confusion for them. During the period of a month, they will sometimes pray, but their minds are then filled with business matters which ordinarily occupy them. They are so attached to these things that where their treasure lies, their heart goes also. Sometimes they do put all these things aside, and the self-knowledge and awareness that they are not proceeding correctly to get to the door is important. Finally, they enter the first lower rooms, but so many reptiles get in with them that they are prevented from seeing the beauty of the castle and from calming down. They have done quite a bit just by having entered. Interior Castle, first mansion, first chapter, paragraph 8. So, if you want to live, you must have no permanent abode. You must have no place to rest your head. You have to flow with it. As the great Confucius says, the one who would be constant in happiness must frequently change. Flow, but we keep looking back, don't we? We cling to things in the past, cling to things in the present. When you set your hand to the plow, you cannot look back, says Jesus. Do you want to enjoy a melody? Do you want to enjoy a symphony? Don't hold on to a few bars of the music. Don't hold on to a couple of notes. Let them pass. Let them flow. The whole enjoyment of a symphony lies in your readiness to allow the notes to pass. Whereas if a particular bar took your fancy and you shouted to the orchestra, keep playing it again and again and again, that wouldn't be symphony anymore. Well, we understand that. The types of souls before beginning the entire dynamic of the entry into the interior castle, Teresa explains two types of souls that are on the way to interior castle. The most impaired, those who have focused on external matters to such an extent that they have completely neglected prayer and interior life can no longer do anything to help themselves change. They need help from the Lord Himself. She says she is not writing for such persons. Instead, she addresses her work to people who, though involved in the world, have good desires to make occasional efforts at prayer. They eventually enter the first lower rooms of the castle, but so many reptiles, worldly concerns, she says, enter with them that they cannot appreciate the castle. Teresa assures her sisters, her disciples, that they are not among those in this least prayerful group, but asks their patience as she tries to write about this difficult topic. Teresa mentions 3 biblical types of those who remain outside the castle and are invited to enter. First, the wife of Lot, who in turning to look at the burning city was turned into a pillar of salt. Genesis chapter 19 verse 26. The paralytic at the pool at Bethsaida. John 5 verses 2 to 8. And the man born blind who begins to see through his meeting with Jesus in the process of healing. John 9 verses 1 to 7. Each of these individuals was handicapped in some way and prevented from entering the castle and beholding the treasures that are there. Now, what could be the key to enter the castle? It may seem strange that castle can only be entered through prayer. Couldn't a psychologist, for example, enter it by studying the psyche? But for Teresa, human interiority contains something sacred. The castle is inhabited by God. To enter it is to begin a serious relationship with God, who dwells in its inmost dwelling place in the castle. Not a profane, but a religious gesture is necessary. To pray is to experience a personal relationship with God. A wise man once told her that a soul without prayer is like a person whose arms and limbs are paralyzed. Without it, the soul limps and unable to move along in its spiritual journey. Prayer for Teresa is the door and point of entry into the castle. Those who pray can gain access to the first interior mansions of the soul. She reminds her readers that there are many ways of being present in the castle. Through prayer, a person can be interiorly present to his or her soul. Vocal prayer and meditation are the main ways of prayer for those at this beginning stage of the spiritual life. For Teresa, there is a close connection between the two. According to her, vocal prayer to a certain degree consists of quiet reflection. If there is no quiet reflection, then vocal prayer cannot be called genuine prayer at all. Normally, the initial level of spiritual awareness is very fragile and easily lost. Those who refuse to enter the soul's interior castle through the door of prayer live in great danger and confusion. Those who make it into these outer rooms are still very much concerned with worldly affairs, but have a good intention and commend themselves to constant prayer as far as possible. But they need determination to do so. In our life, we always are enthusiastic to begin a journey, but the fervor quickly dies out. This has been a normal phenomenon among people. We witness that people go for retreats and prayer sessions and meditation workshops with real intention to continue. But when the initial fire dies out, they give up. For any success and for any growth in spiritual or material life for that matter, one needs to be on a horseback and take that ride till the end. I would say discipline, perseverance, and consistency are the hallmarks for any success. That is what Teresa insists in the initial mansion of the interior castle. In Teresa's view, when you cling to anything, life is destroyed. When you hold on to anything, you cease to live. It's all over the gospel passage. And the one attains this understanding understands better what lies ahead. Understand another illusion too, that happiness is not the same as excitement. It's not the same as thrills. In fact, thrill comes from having a personal desire fulfilled. When someone desires a thrill, in the long run, it becomes illusory and short-lived. Desire breeds anxiety, and sooner or later it brings its hangover. When you have suffered sufficiently, then you are ready to see. You are feeding yourself with thrills. This is like feeding a racehorse with delicacies. You are giving it cakes and wine. You don't feed a racehorse like that. It is like feeding human beings with drugs. You don't fill your stomach with drugs. You need good, solid, nutritious food and drink. You need to understand all this for yourself. Teresa recommends her listeners and disciples that they need to go through the narrow door and be aware of a rugged road ahead in this journey to interior castle, where we will be able to meet our King, who is everything for us. When we are capable of undertaking this journey, dear friends, I tell you, your whole perspective of the world, of your possessions, of your family, of your relatives, of your friends, and life itself changes, because you are hammering on something fundamental, solid, lasting, and permanent. And that is encounter with your Creator, our loving Father, who is dwelling in our hearts. God bless you.